Hi, we're going to give this a shot and see if this works a little better for recording these lessons. So this is the lesson for the sixth Sunday of Lent, getting ready for Easter. So we're going to consider this Palm Sunday, and it will kind of anticipate the things that are going to happen on Good Friday, even though there won't be a lesson on Good Friday for the children. As you're watching this video, please be sure that you've taken a moment to look back on some of the other previous lessons in which we go over the weeks leading up to the sixth Sunday. So we started with Jesus' birth, moving on to his time in Jerusalem when he was about 12 years old, his baptism, his temptation in the desert, and finally the ministry that he began. And we'll kind of review all of those before you begin the lesson today. So just take a moment. You can get out the materials from the shelf and revisit the different images that have already been talked about. And then at that point, you would begin the lesson for today. And because of that, this is going to be a pretty lengthy lesson. We won't have much time for art response because you would have gathered the children, gotten to know them a little bit better, shared their names, maybe talked about spring break or other events that may have come up, and you would have addressed the circle of the church here behind me, there it is, and moved the arrow to the last Sunday in that purple season of Lent, getting ready for Easter. So all of that would have preceded your lesson, so that means things are going to get bumped back pretty far. So don't feel any kind of pressure to give them plenty of art response time. You could even just do a very short little reflection with them and check the time and then move on to feast. So it's really no rush to fit in that art response if it gets too cramped for time. All right, but as you begin your lesson today, again, it's a diversion from the pattern of the weeks preceding, so you'll kind of explain that we're going to be learning something a little different today and go into more detail about something really important that happened in Jesus's life. Okay? All right. Well, you might remember that there was a special time when the people of God traveled to Jerusalem every year to celebrate the feast of the Passover. The Feast of the Passover was a time in which people traveled down that long road that Jesus had been down many times. Again and again, they traveled to Jerusalem on their way to remember the powerful things that God had done, to remember the way that God had saved his people, and never to forget when God saved the Jewish people and protected them from all the things that were happening at that time. And of course, God continued to protect the Jewish people and continued to make way for them. Even though they struggled and even though there were difficult times, God was always with them. So they traveled to Jerusalem to celebrate this and to remember the amazing things that God had done. This time, as Jesus traveled along, he had made space and made a place to begin showing people yet again just how special he was. And one of the things that had happened that helped the people to understand this, especially his disciples, is the disciples had made a space ahead for him. Jesus had told them to go ahead to the road on the way to Jerusalem and find a donkey that was waiting, tied up in a very special place that only Jesus had known and only Jesus had told them about. And as the disciples went, they found this donkey and they prepared the way for Jesus. They made space for him. They made provision for his journey. Do you remember someone else that rode on a donkey? Jesus' mother rode on a donkey on the way to Bethlehem that night when she was about to have Jesus. Well, as Jesus traveled along the road to Jerusalem this time, the people began to whisper and began to talk and began to say, "This is the one we've been hearing about. This is the one. He's been doing amazing things. He's been telling amazing stories. Some of these people may have seen Jesus heal the man of blindness. Some of these people might have seen Jesus help the leper to be clean. Some of the people might have heard the story of Jesus saving those who were sick, befriending those who were lonely, loving those who felt they were unloved. They might have heard these stories. They may have been there. They started to get excited about the person that Jesus was. And they began to think, maybe this is the one we've been waiting for. The people of God had been waiting a long time, ever since King David, ever since the prophets told them to get ready. They had been waiting for the Messiah. And they thought maybe he was a different kind of king. Maybe he was the kind of king that would rule with an army. Maybe he was the kind of king that would take over and kick all the people out of Jerusalem and out of Bethlehem who had been hurting them and causing trouble. They thought maybe he was the kind of king that would rule and be in charge. Maybe he was the kind of king that would hurt the people that had hurt them, or get rid of the people that had kept them away. They didn't really understand that he might not be that kind of king. This king would rule with love and with forgiveness and with salvation. This king would lead through his example. That might have been hard for them to understand, but they were so excited when they saw him coming. They were so excited to think, maybe this is the one we've been waiting for. They were so excited that they began to make space for him in their own way. They began to make a place for him in whatever way they could. They get a little bit wiggly, don't they? They laid down cloaks and blankets so that his path would be beautiful and soft. They didn't have much, so they just laid down whatever they did have. They laid down cloaks, jackets, and as he walked along the road, they continued to make space for him all the way to Jerusalem. And as they were doing this, as they were making space, they would say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." They were cheering and shouting, "Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." They were so excited. They were shouting and cheering, getting ready for this amazing man, this man that would change everything. They didn't quite know how. They didn't quite understand, but they knew he was something very, very special. And many of them believed he was the Messiah. Many of them already understood that he was the Son of God. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Now the people continue to celebrate and continue to just be overwhelmed with joy and excitement about Jesus coming. They even began to grab leaves off the trees, just take the palm branches off and put those on the ground. They just couldn't make it beautiful enough. They couldn't make it soft enough for such an amazing man. They just wanted to keep decorating the road and making it ready for him. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. They were covering the road with beautiful garments, pulling leaves off the trees to make way for him. They felt they couldn't be ready enough. They could hardly be excited enough about this wonderful man and the wonderful things that he might do. Now you have the chance to make way for Jesus too. You have the chance to make this road ready for him, to begin to make your hearts ready for Easter. You may put a leaf here on the road, and as you do, you may also say, Hosanna in the highest, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. You can say it with me. All together we can say, Hosanna in the highest, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And all the way to Jerusalem Jesus traveled to begin a part of his adventure that would not be easy, a part of the rescue plan that would be very difficult. In fact, the part of the rescue plan that's about to begin means that Jesus has to die. At this time, you would begin the wondering, or the kind of inquiry time with the students. You saw during the lesson I sort of handed out leaves. You can be sure to give one to every student so that they can add it to the road on the way to Jerusalem, so that they can physically begin to participate in that preparation for Easter. And at this time, you could ask some questions. Begin to invite the children to wonder, I wonder how Jesus felt when he was walking along that road and all the people were saying, Hosanna in the highest, cheering for him. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. I wonder how that felt for Jesus when he heard the people saying that. Don't you wonder too? Why did Jesus, the King of Kings, the Son of God, the rescuer of us all, why would he ride on a donkey? A lowly, small, usually grumpy donkey. I wonder why. I wonder why he didn't ride on a big, fancy horse or a decorated elephant with jewels and fabric across its back. I wonder why he just rode on a regular old donkey. I wonder how the people felt when they took off their coats and laid them on the ground, and when they pulled the leaves off the trees and covered the ground, covered the road. I wonder how the people felt when they did that. The people in Jerusalem probably saw these things happening as they were happening. I wonder what the people of Jerusalem thought when they saw this man on a donkey and all the people cheering and shouting. What did the people of Jerusalem think? I wonder what they thought was happening. Some of them thought he was going to be the kind of king that would rule with armies. I wonder what sort of king he will really be. How will he truly rule and teach and govern and care for his people? I wonder what it would be like to live in a kingdom like that. To live in a place where Jesus was in charge. I wonder what it would be like to live our lives with Jesus in charge. All right, there's not a special craft today. We have had some special crafts activities to go along with Lent, but for today, depending on how much time you have, they may begin some worship time with art, music, writing, building, conversation. This is a time to respond to the story and to reflect on the things that they have learned. And at the kind of designated time, I would guess about 10 minutes before parents might arrive, 15 minutes before the end of the service, you might go ahead and get them cleaned up. I usually sing Jesus Loves Me 3 times, just as a cue for the children to begin that cleanup time. They can sing along with me.